Hey folks, this is Abel James, and thanks so much for joining us on Fat Burning Man, where we talk about real food and real results. What do Navy SEALs know that you don't? You're about to find out. In this special throwback episode of the show, we're here with a fan favorite, Mr. Mark Devine. Mark served 9 years on active duty in the Navy SEALs, 11 years as a Reserve SEAL, and now runs SEALFIT, a program that pumps out superhumans like nobody's business. Don't miss this one, but first, here's something to help you survive the most sugary weeks of the year. One of the most common reasons people fail to get results is because they're short on time and just eat what's around them. Has that ever happened to you? Christmas cookies, especially this time of year, tend to make things a little bit more complicated. So whether you need to lose 100 pounds or that stubborn last 5 to 10, you can get started getting lean today without gimmicks, just real food you can make with your family at home. And the Fat Burning Chef is an e-cookbook with over 200 quick and easy recipes that are low in sugar, high in nutrients, and super simple to make yourself. They're family friendly, and thousands of people all across the world are feasting with Fat Burning Chef right now. Frank says, seriously, this cookbook is my number one most used go-to. And Frank, thank you so much. That is definitely a huge compliment. Ellen says, it's never too late to get healthy, and these recipes are an inspiration. Courtney says, so excited about this cookbook. It's like having all of my favorite paleo chefs and bloggers help me with dinner. Smiley face. Courtney, I'm so glad you picked up on that. That's exactly why we put Fat Burning Chef together, so we could take the best from everyone's areas of expertise, put them together, and share our favorites all in one place. And it will definitely help you get through the holidays. So when you grab Fat Burning Chef, you also get a free copy to share with family or friends. So share it with the people you care about completely for free. It's a digital program, and you can do that instantly. All you have to do to get your discount and bonuses is go to fatburningchef.com. But this expires soon. It's just for the holidays. And definitely make sure you're signed up at fatburningman.com for the free newsletter. So whether you're on mobile or desktop or tablet, just go to fatburningman.com, sign up for the free newsletter. There's a very special bonus coming for newsletter subscribers only, coming soon. So fatburningman.com is completely for free. Check that out. Now, all right, on to the show with Mr. Mark Devine. In this show, we talk about one critical difference between a master and a thug, how to do yoga even if you're a dude, and why we both love Star Trek: The Next Generation. Don't worry, we don't speak Klingon. Let's go hang out with Mark. All right, folks, I'm very happy to be here with a good friend and the man behind SEALFIT, one of the things that makes you into a total beast for the rest of your life, Mr. Mark Devine. How's it going, Mark?
Yeah, Abel, it's great to see you. Thanks.
So I was telling you before the call, but you are always, when you come on the show, a fan favorite. People just rave about what you do. And I think that's for very good reason, because you're capable of almost superhuman feats. Can you tell people, if they don't know who you are, can you tell people a little bit about SEALFIT and the other things you do?
That's pretty humbling. No, I'm superhuman feats. Just don't ask me to perform any, please, right now.
Okay.
I'm still on my first cup of coffee.
Skype wouldn't capture it anyway.
Skype would not capture it. No. Yeah, so I guess without going into a whole lot of gory detail, I'm a former Navy SEAL commander, or actually retired commander. Spent 20 years in the SEAL teams. 25-year practitioner of the martial arts, and 15-year practitioner and teacher of yoga, and also a business entrepreneur and owner. I've started about 6 different businesses with varying degrees of success. You know, some major craters in the ground, which I'm sure you have a few of those black holes still simmering a little bit, you know.
Festering.
And then some really good, neat successes. So I'm currently working on about 8 years into an unbelievably cool experience and journey with a program called SEALFIT. Mm-hmm. SEALFIT has a worldwide reputation now for developing mental toughness, emotional resiliency, warrior spirit. And our training program is wickedly cool. I mean, I was just telling you before we started that I did an executive academy this weekend with 21 executives, all high-end, consultants and real estate professionals and business owners.
And just kicked the crap out of them.
We did kick the crap out of them, but they did it, right?
Yeah.
Everyone did it. Everyone loved it. We met everyone where they're at. It's not like, we're using the same methods that I used to teach the SEALs and the Spec Ops candidates, but obviously radically scaled and adapted and appropriate for the age. And we had a 69-year-old guy, and the 59-year-old lady came up to me afterwards and said, Mark, beyond my wedding weekend, this is the most profound training of my life, or profound weekend of my life.
That's amazing.
How cool is that?
Yeah, this is so cool.
And again, I think people have just gotten away from taking themselves out of their comfort zone to the point that they don't even know what their comfort zone is anymore.
Right.
And we get people uncomfortable with discomfort again, and they realize, wow, this really feels good. We're playing again. I had another woman who runs a big consultancy out of Denver named Kelly Coleman. And she said, she'd always been an athlete. And then, as her business took over, family took over, she just assumed that being an athlete wasn't part of her life anymore. And now we've got her doing, rope climbing and tire flips and burpees and playing. And, teaching her that fitness doesn't have to be boring, standing on a treadmill and, blah, 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 reading magazine. It can be fun. You know what I mean? It's meant fun. You're meant to play.
A challenge.
Yeah, and challenge yourself. And guess what? When you do that, and when you add mental challenges and you add emotional challenges, and you train with a team of like-minded individuals, and then you learn some of the skills of doing this together, all of a sudden, all this translates back to being a better teammate, being a better better person. It develops character ultimately. And so that's what I'm doing with SEALFIT. And I'm absolutely having a ball, doing that. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I live in Encinitas, California, sunny, warm.
Skipped the whole winter.
No winter. I just went back east to give a couple speeches last week. And I was, yuck. I mean, God bless you if you live back east. I grew up back east in upstate New York.
Where'd you grow up?
Outside of Utica, kind of. We call it central leather stocking region in New York. It's like dairy country, but also they used to make leather there, I guess.
Huh.
I don't know.
Cool. Yeah, my brother's actually up there. He does organic farming.
Always.
Area. Oh, it's beautiful.
I love upstate New York, but the winters are long and nasty. And
they sure are. I don't miss that part. I grew up in New Hampshire, so. Man,
oh yeah, same.
Yeah, same. But anyway, so enough about the weather. Let's talk about one of the things that's so cool about you, Mark, is that a lot of people kind of cave because they're stressed, they're overburdened by whatever the world is throwing at them or what they're throwing at themselves. One of the biggest causes of losing your health is that. But you seem to become only more resilient by how old are you now?
I'm 51.
And you still train with like the young bucks, right? When you're abusing them in your program, you're right there with them. How are you able to withstand so much challenge and abuse and everything in between, and still maintain your health and your sanity?
Oh my God. You know what? Jeez, I could write a book about that.
You should.
I did. I forgot. Holy cow.
No, that one is a great book, but I would read another 800-page text on that because I think I haven't seen many people pull it off. Certainly not for the extent of a time or a career like you have. What do you do? What's the day to day? What would you say to people who are overburdened?
Okay, so let's just start off with this notion that if you're feeling a lot of stress, that's because you're choosing to accept that stress. You're choosing to live this life that feels fast, overburdened, rushing from here to there, overcommitted. And that's all. It's all a choice. Now, it may feel like it's not a choice, but ultimately, everything in life is a choice, right? So your health is a choice. What commitments you take on is a choice. What level of stress you allow into your life is a choice. So let's just start there. Now, the question is, can we control ourselves to the level where we allow ourselves to be able to, we have the capacity to turn it into a choice instead of just being kind of driven by other people's values or society's values, or just being kind of rolled over like a steamroller from what's happening in your life. Yeah. And so that's kind of like the first premise. Now, I was very fortunate enough to learn early in my life, in my early 20s, how to take control of my mind, how to take control of my emotions, so that I could write the script, from here on out. And what was cool about this is I learned this through a martial arts grandmaster for 4 years while I was in the business world before I became a SEAL. So I was actually a CPA, went to NYU, got my MBA, right? And I was kind of charging along that path, and I was out of control. I was living someone else's life. It wasn't my life.
I was there too.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, and
consulting in
a
DC.
lot of people are, right? A lot of
Yeah,
people are, and they're, 30 years later, they wonder how the hell they got there. I mean,
yeah,
they have some material success and probably not as much as they'd like, and they don't feel secure. But more than that, they just feel like, ugh, like
right.
what's wrong with my life? They don't understand how they missed the boat. It's because they didn't take the time to get back in control and then to figure out what boat they were supposed to be on, and then
Hmm.
set it off in the right direction. And I just feel incredibly grateful that I had that, the fortune to learn the beginnings of this process to regain total control and then to develop that control. Now, when I went into SEAL training at 25, I turned 26 in Buds. I had learned enough from the Grand Master Nakamura that I mean, I literally sailed through SEAL training. I had
Hmm.
a blast. I mean, you're not going to find too many SEALs say they had a blast in
Right.
training. We had 180 people start training. We had 19 guys graduate,
Yeah.
and one of us was the honor man. That was me because I
Wow.
showed up with a smile on my face
Yeah.
every single day,
That's cool.
and I just attacked it with my hair on fire and was tried to be a good teammate and stayed in control. No
Yeah.
matter what they threw at me.
What
Yeah,
school of martial arts was it?
what was called Sado,
Okay.
and just like special ops, there's no one best
Right.
martial art there's no one best special ops force. The SEALs are great at direct action, and the Green Berets are great at guerrilla warfare and counterinsurgency and that
Hmm.
kind of thing. But there are better special operators, right?
Yeah.
And there are masters, and then there are thugs. They all
Right.
exist. That spectrum, right? Even
Yeah.
in the SEAL teams.
What's the
So
difference between the two of them? And maybe this is just going on track with the
between
same
a
answer that you
master
were
and a
going in. Yeah.
thug, right?
Yeah. The master and the thug.
That's such a great question. Well, on the outside, to the untrained eye, they might look the same, right?
Hmm.
Let's say I got SEAL A, who's a thug, and SEAL B, who's a master. They both are going to look tough. They're both going to have exceptional tactical skills, right? Um, they're able to run long and swim hard and all that
Hmm.
kind of stuff. The difference is that the thug is not trying to develop themselves. They're not interested nor caring or aware to be able to develop themselves to the highest levels of consciousness and awareness.
Hmm.
Whereas the master makes it a first premise of theirs that every day they wake up and they are not just doing their job, but they're seeking through every single experience, every interaction, every moment to master themselves, to make themselves
Hmm.
better, to become better people, to be more complete as human beings. And that leads them up the trajectory of consciousness development to where they're operating at the highest stages. And you might, from a spiritual tradition, call that enlightenment.
Hmm.
The Zen tradition, which was completely aligned with, or like, I wouldn't say completely, but quite a bit aligned with the Eastern martial arts, would talk about like Satori or a beginner's mind,
Hmm.
in terms of sword fighting, like Miyamashi, and the samurai, incorporated Zen training into their training. And so these are examples of masters or individuals who chose this path, the warrior's path, and they were duty bound to perform a particular job in the world. They're oriented toward action, right? And they're duty bound, so they typically are drawn to a career in the armed services or something like that. But not necessarily. I mean, it could be in a Peace Corps, it could be serving the environment as
Hmm.
environmentalists. You're just drawn toward action. You're serving something greater than yourself, and it might be even in the spiritual sense, serving in that,
Yeah.
serving God. But part of that is you don't just expect that you know it all,
Hmm.
or that you're capable, and so you are always striving to grow. And as you grow, you realize how little you actually know. Whereas
Yeah.
the other side of the coin is the thug pretty much assumes they know it all. They've got it covered. They're good, and so
Hmm.
they're instead of stoking their humility along this path, instead of constantly refining their character, like iron sharpening iron,
Hmm.
and choosing, things that are going to humble them, and embracing failure, and really, really trying to, cultivate that refined, humanity. The thug is stoking their ego,
Yeah.
right? They're seeking to dominate. They're seeking to win. And they've got enough skill and talent that they do win, but often at the expense of others,
Yeah.
right? And so you can imagine, in the field of warfare, um, a thug would prosecute, a battlefield in a very different way than a warrior, than an authentic warrior, a
Yeah.
master. You know what I mean? The decisions they make are going to be different. They're over there to, let's say, go after ISIS and play whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just kill as many of the booger eaters as they can. Whereas a true master warrior is going to be much more thoughtful about how they go about it and look at it from multiple angles and be able to take the perspective of the enemy. And there may be certain situations where the enemy goes unharmed because there's a higher order good that can come out of that. Does that make sense?
Oh, that's so wonderful. You know, it reminds me, we're huge nerds. And when we do watch TV at the end of a long day, I've been doing a lot of like 7 interview days in a row.
Oh,
so
wow.
We'll sit down and we'll watch TV. And we were just watching one
It's
of our
like
favorite.
going on a 20-hour ruck or something like that.
Yeah, totally. Well, not quite like that, I'm sure. So we were watching Star Trek the other night, the Next Generation, which was always one of my favorite shows growing up. Right. And there was one, like what you said reminded me of Data is the android in that show. Right. And they found like basically Data's twin who hadn't gotten any better. He'd been shut down for a while, didn't really have that character. And so it was this whole philosophical debate about the difference between the two. And basically it was that they could never be the same or equal because one of them never tried to get better. And the thing that distinguished basically the Data on the Enterprise was that there was that constant thirst for getting better, for understanding humanity, for trying to bring yourself to, even though, you know, you're smarter than everyone, you have more knowledge than everyone, you're trying actively to become more humble with all of that. And that's, it also...
That's cool. That's great.
Yeah, it's so great. And it really makes it easy to watch in a way that, like, I think it's tough to learn that lesson in life. So you need to be constantly reminded by that. There's another...
I mean, that's Data kind of was the Spock, right, of the
essentially,
model, right. So when Spock, you know, Leonard Nimoy just passed away, God bless him. I loved him. His character was amazing.
Oh, such a beautiful character, yeah.
But that was in a similar fashion. Spock, you know, the humanity rubbed off on him.
Right.
You know, he tried like hell at first to just ignore it, but over time, you know, he couldn't, you know, you couldn't not see it, and he, you know, came out in his character. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
You know, my thinking, Abel, is that, you know, people, that is also a choice to grow. Some people never come to it or never, period. And then others need like a major kick in the balls. You know, they need a crisis situation, you know, like cancer or something like that. And that's tragic, but then out of the ashes, like a phoenix, they rise up and they end up, you know, completely on this growth path, and they're like born again almost. In fact, there's a leadership theory called Twice Born that a guy named Zalesnik talked about, and you see that in a lot of leaders where they're transactional leaders. They're about power and control, you know, and all of a sudden something really radically life-altering happens to them, and then they completely change and they come out and they're really about service and you know, and it's not about them anymore. Right. It's interesting. One of our training events at SEALFIT is a 50-hour nonstop training event I modeled after Hell Week, which is actually 6 days of nonstop training around the clock. And what we try to do is to get people to experience this, at least in a temporary state, a complete altered reality, right? Not like you would experience, you know, if you were on an LSD trip or something like that. Not that I've ever experienced that, or ayahuasca or something. Right. Which I haven't, but
oh, we're going to Peru next week. We'll tell you all about it.
Are you going down there?
Yeah, we actually are.
No, I was talking to Mike Bledsoe. He tried to get me to go on that trip, but I'm going to be in. You're going to go on. Yeah, I know exactly where you're going.
Oh, cool.
I'm excited for you. Yeah, I was invited to that trip, and I'm going to go next year. I'm bummed I'll miss you. Anyways, you can edit this out. We're going on a total random trip down the ayahuasca highway here.
We were going to get there eventually, anyway. Exactly. As soon as Lindsay Lohan starts doing it, it's all over.
Oh yeah, then it's all over. So, anyways, in Kokoro Camp, you know, it's the hardest training in the world, probably outside the SEALs, but it's completely doable for anyone who has put the time in to prepare their body and their mind. However, they can't do it alone, right? You know, and when I went through SEAL training, the 19 of us who were there standing at the end, you know, there were some guys who got injured, but most people quit. And a lot of reason they quit is they either didn't have the emotional resiliency, the mental toughness, but also because they just didn't know how to ask for help. And they didn't offer any help.
Okay. They
just tried to do it alone. They tried to gut through it like a Rambo. Right. It doesn't work, you know? And life is that way, especially now, right? Life is hard. and you can't do it alone. And
Yeah.
look at the business world, no good business is ever accomplished alone. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Anything worthwhile requires extraordinary efforts of a large number of teammates. And so in Kokoro Camp, we try to get people to experience this sense of being a world-centric warrior where everybody is interconnected and you really can't do this alone. And so that when you get out of the experience, that stays with you. So you can go back and be a better, family member, father, mother, teammate,
Yeah.
and really get outside of yourself. And,
Yeah.
the traditions, whether you're talking about psychotherapy or even the spiritual traditions, really note three primary stages of development, egocentric, ethnocentric, and world-centric. And to grow, the human being is supposed to naturally develop through those, but you tend to level out at the center of gravity of your family, tribe, or country. You know what I mean? And so we have a very ethnocentric society.
Yeah.
And we also have a very large egocentric component of that. And so a lot of people
Which is encouraged.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It's very individualistic,
Yeah.
And so a lot of people are kind of stuck there without even an awareness that there's a there to be stuck at.
Right.
And so my training is to try to really accelerate or elevate people out of that, and then to provide the tools for them to continue to train in a manner that will accelerate their growth as a human.
Yeah.
And so, the way we do that, and I'm sure there's many ways, because they say there's many paths, but the way we do that is what I call integrated warrior development, where we actively work on developing our physical, mental, emotional, intuitional, and spiritual intelligences every day.
Yeah.
Through our training. And we elevate. Sorry, go ahead.
What would you say to someone who, I think a lot of people have the wrong idea about the military or people who are trained in fighting or martial styles? I'm reading a really interesting book right now, Chronicles of Tao, I think it's called. Basically, it's the making of a master, but who's trained in martial arts and Shaolin, then goes into military type training and stuff like that. And basically, you see his journey from being a thug to turning into a master. It seems to me that a lot of your stuff is really driven by the mental, the spiritual.
Sure.
How do you integrate those two things when you're basically being trained to fight?
Yeah, well, again, fighting is just that's what the Buddhists would call your dharma. It's the duty, right? Again, you could be a fighter in a corporate realm. You can be a fighter anywhere.
Sure. I've met quite a few of those.
Yeah, exactly. And so you don't have to be picking up a weapon. In fact, at the master level, the warrior is the last to pick up the weapon, to pick up the lance. The way we do it is to have an equal emphasis on working in as we do working out. Right?
Yeah.
So the physical is necessary. The physical is necessary to be functionally fit, to have the mobility, to be able to have the, developing your body so you have strength, stamina, the capacity to work really hard for, intense periods of time, to be able to take care of crises, take care of your teammate, endurance so you can stay in the game, stamina, right? And durability so you don't get sidelined, you don't break, and to be able to develop the physical structure to be able to stay in this game of life regardless of what your career is, but especially if you're an industrial athlete or warrior athlete, to use your body for your job. So that's critical now, and also develop the skills of your profession. Whether those be we train electrical linemen that have to climb utility lines in the storms and fix high voltage electrical lines.
Right.
Pretty intense,
Yeah.
So we train them. Our training is to give them the functional fitness as well as the mental toughness and resiliency to be able to stay the course, through those trying times. But, they've still got to develop the skills on their own and through their training to be able to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then, the physical training is a great method to begin to do mental training, because when you train, at the level that we do, where the training is hard, where the training requires, complex motor skills, where the training requires long hours and planning and working together as a team, now all of a sudden you're getting into mental development. You're developing your concentration, your focus, your staying power, your mental stamina, all that kind of stuff. So that's really just the beginning, though. So we don't leave it to that. We say, okay, now let's also develop our minds. Now we can develop our minds through working out, and we develop our minds through working in. So we develop our minds through concentration training, breath control, meditation, moving somatic movement, right?
Yeah.
More refined movement like yoga or Tai Chi or Qigong, through memory drills, through visualization drills, stuff like that. And so it's all developing not just the critical mind, which is just a small aspect of your mind. Your mind, there's 5 primary ways that we think. We think by what we think of as thinking, which is using our critical mind, our neocortex, to solve problems and to analyze and rationalize and all that. But we also have accessing memory. That's an actual thinking capacity. So you can improve the ability of your mind to access memory. Your visual mind. Okay, so consider your ability to create images, to form images, to review images as a language. Well, we have symbolic language like words and mathematics, but we also have a visual language. And that visual language is powerful because, our subconscious mind, our heart mind, and our belly mind, they don't communicate in symbolic language. They communicate in sensory feelings and imagery, right? And so that's the third way our minds work. The fourth is dreaming, right? Interesting, which combines kind of memory with imagery.
Right.
But it's a unique thing in and of itself. It's often thought of as a way for our subconscious to kind of process things.
Sure.
And then the fifth is the one that's super powerful. This is the one I try to train because it cracks people wide open. And that's this notion of direct perception, which can only be found in the present moment. Now, your critical thinking mind and your memory mind are all can only be utilized in a future mental state or a past mental state. And so part of my mental training at SEALFIT is to teach people how to use their minds, their thinking mind, their critical mind effectively in a future state to plan, to envision victory, to rehearse victory, right? And to make sure that you can focus on the right tactical things, the right targets en route to victory.
Yeah.
And then we use our mind in the past to relive events and extract the positive, like the silver lining playbook, extract the silver lining, extract the lessons, to celebrate the positive things, to decide what to kill off and leave in your past, and to choose what to bring forward so that you can use those lessons, either in a future planning state or in the present. But what's neat about this, Abel, is when you develop your mind so that it's a choice to go into the future, a future state, to do the planning and the visioning and stuff like that, and it's a choice to go in the past and do that, and we have morning and evening rituals for both of those, that frees you up to be radically present during the day when you're getting the job done.
Yeah.
And in that present mind state, that's when we allow our direct perception faculties to be able to receive more information, to take it in and to absorb, right?
Yeah.
And that's when you get these senses of just knowing things. Like I call it knowingness, right? You didn't really think it, but you just know it.
Right.
And it's a unique intelligence that we have as humans that can be trained.
Yeah.
And it's related to intuition, but I think intuition also combines sensory awareness and other things. And so ultimately, working in developing ourselves mentally and then emotionally, that's another one, especially for us guys. Emotional intelligence is incredibly important. I think it's equally as important as cognitive intelligence.
Sure.
I chose the word kokoro for the kokoro camp, that 50-hour camp, because it means to merge your heart and your mind into your actions. There's just no American word that comes close.
Right.
And so what they're saying is be intelligent both emotionally and cognitively, and be able to use both for wise decisions, not just clever decisions that are going to have second and third order negative effects, which is what we have going on all over the place in our society, in our world. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just a complete disaster.
Yeah.
Because
it is.
yeah. And so, this is a good reason, and I'll be quiet after this. This is a good place for me to say that my overall mission, like if I get up every morning and I have a morning ritual, and part of that is to check in with my purpose. My purpose in life is to master myself so I can serve others to achieve their maximum human potential.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I'm doing this is I believe that we all need to upgrade our human operating systems so that every single person can take part in solving some of these intractable problems that we've created.
Yeah.
And it's not going to happen until we can take a kokoro heart-mind approach and everyone gets in the game. We can't wait for the next president or some world leader to magically wave a wand. It just doesn't work that way. The systems that we have developed right now are the ones that created the problem. They can't solve it.
Yeah.
They're incapable of even seeing it, right?
Thugs.
So the problems are going to be solved by social entrepreneurs, by guys like you and me, and
Yeah.
by millions of people who literally get on board and say, "Okay, it's our time. We
Yeah.
got to step up and take responsibility for the environment and for our global health and for creating an interconnected society of people who are mutually supportive and instead of trying to chop each other's head off."
Right. That heart mind action connection is so cool. I was recently listening to an interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I think it was Tim Ferriss asked him if he meditated or what his history of meditation was. And he said that he used to. He used to do it a lot when he was bodybuilding. And now, basically, when he's exercising, when he's lifting weights, he is in his biceps. He is using those meditative capabilities that he learned
That's terrific.
for basically anything that he does. And I really related to that, as a musician, because after a while you reach a certain level and you realize you're not the one who's playing, right? You're the one who's channeling. You're in a deep meditative state. I'm sure if Dave Asprey hooked my brain up to a bunch of gadgets, it would show that I'm in a very unique type of brain state when that sort of thing happens. And it seems like you're one of the rare people who really does that. And one thing that you mentioned before the call is the warrior approach to yoga. And usually you don't put those two things together, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you do that and also how you value that, because I think a lot of people, especially on the martial side of things, that might make you somewhat unique as well. Yeah, although I might be wrong.
I think that yoga ultimately is a martial tradition. It's the oldest personal development system known to mankind. It's at least 5,000, probably way older than that, 5,000 years. Yoga is not what we think of it in the West. It's not, a group of 50 girls and 4 guys, sweating through a hot yoga class.
On chemical yoga mats.
Right, exactly. Although that's certainly part of it, but it's a small part of it.
Sure.
Even the martial arts have a connection to yoga. I mean, there was a fellow named Bodhidharma who was a great yogi sage who found his way to the Shaolin monastery, and the monks there had a rudimentary form of fighting called Shaolin boxing, but they didn't really have the functional fitness or the mental control. They didn't know how to meditate, and so Bodhidharma taught them Zen. So Zen came out of his work. And he taught them a form of functional fitness that was asana. And when combined with the fighting and developed over many more years, it became, Shaolin Kung Fu.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting, huh? And so,
it's amazing.
And also the Indians, yoga came out of ancient India, but there is a martial art there that's considered to be the oldest martial art in the world. I wish I could remember that. It's like Kapatali or something like that, or Kapatali. And if you go to northern India and look at people who are practicing it, there's aspects of yoga asana in it, and there's aspects of like regular kung fu fighting, and it's all kind of one thing. And so I go back to where I went to, did the martial arts. We didn't do yoga, but now they offer yoga classes combined with their martial arts. So it's kind of coming full circle.
Yeah.
Now, I've been teaching what I call warrior yoga, which is kind of my version of yoga I started with SEAL candidates back in 2007, and now I teach it to everyone. And I actually am working on a book called Warrior Yoga, and we just put a little DVD together. Cool. And it's super powerful because what it is a total warrior development practice. Whereas I would say Unbeatable Mind is like the physical training, or not Unbeatable, but SEALFIT's my physical training. Unbeatable Mind's like my philosophy and executive coaching. Warrior Yoga is the practice.
Yeah.
Right. And I began this practice actually as a warrior when I was recalled active duty. I was a reserve SEAL, which is a great job, by the way, if you can imagine. Being a Navy SEAL reservist is like, being part of a staffing company for the coolest job in the world. You know what I mean? Yeah. I could snap my fingers or pick up the phone and be around the world and jumping into, some sort of firefight somewhere. It's really cool.
Yeah. Right? Wow.
But at the same time, I got to build a business and be with my family. So about half my SEAL career was, active duty on a team. The other half was as a reserve officer. Yeah. So anyways, I went to Iraq, Baghdad in 2004, and it was on a special project with SEAL Team 1. And when I got there, I had already been practicing yoga now for about 5 years, right? And so I didn't think about it, but I did bring my yoga mat. And when I got into the SEAL compound, it was near a lake where Saddam Hussein had a palace, and we'd kind of taken it over. And I went to try to figure out how to work out and realized that pretty quickly the gym was like a combat patrol, an hour away. And so there was no gym. And so I was relegated to just kind of jogging and regular PT, which I was fine with. But I said, maybe there's something better. And so I found this spot near the lake and near one of the little, palace like hooches. And I began to do what I call an integrated practice. I didn't really know I didn't really understand it all at the time, but and I look back and I think it was pretty cool that it just came out of me. So I just, the spot that I was training with, it was the size of my yoga mat, because that's what I used to kind of hold the space. And I would start with breathing, right? And breath control training is profound and it's super powerful. And so I created this thing called box breathing, which was a simple ratio of inhaling to a 5 count, holding my breath to a 5 count, exhaling to a 5 count, holding my breath. It totally got my mind and my body really, really clear, energized, kind of balanced, and my mind was empty, and the stress was being managed properly because I was kind of triggering my parasympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
Again, just through trial and error. I didn't have the words to describe it the way I just did. So I did that for about 15 minutes. And then I would go into a series of standing poses to warm up. So about 20 minutes of standing poses. And then I would pause because this served, or I should say this session doubled as my physical training. Mm-hmm. And what I learned from yoga before that was that yoga is a poor substitute for fitness. Yeah. It really isn't. It's not meant to be fitness. I mean, it will get you into better shape if you're doing nothing else. But for guys like us or warriors and athletes, it's a complement to fitness. It's not really the intention, right? Mm-hmm. So anyways, but having said that, it is amazing for spinal health, which is one of the primary benefits, as well as detoxification and mobility and flexibility. Yeah. Obviously, those are important. So anyways, then I would take a pause and I would do about 20 minutes of functional fitness. I was just learning CrossFit and I didn't have any tools, but I could do squats and burpees and star jumpers and stuff like that. But so I'd work up I'd get my heart rate up into that intensity zone, and I'd stay there for about 20 minutes, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. And then when I was done, I would the third or the fourth segment of this, I would go down and do a bunch of seated poses, a lot more core stretching, twists, and some ab work and stuff like that. And then I would end in Shavasana, which is corpse pose, and I would do a visualization. Now the visualization was not part of my yoga training. The functional fitness wasn't part of my yoga training. The asana or the poses were, and the breath control was. So I was combining different elements. And the visualization was something I called the future me. I would visualize myself at home, healthy, with my wife and my son, after the deployment, right? And so I put myself in this future state where I was going to be there. Yeah. Right. I tell you what, Abel, so the whole sessions would last about an hour, sometimes maybe an hour and 15 or an hour and 30. Mm-hmm. And I would skip breakfast to do these because it became so profoundly important to my day. Yeah. And the longer I spent in the combat zone, the better I felt. I was getting in great shape. I felt amazing from this practice. My mind was clear and just felt super confident. And wow, I tell you what, that stuck with me. And so a couple of years later, 2007, when I started the SEALFIT program, initially I was like, okay, we're just gonna do this hardcore physical training, and I'm gonna teach them some mental toughness, right? And I thought, well, what's the mental toughness? What am I gonna teach them? And then I thought, okay, what worked for me was breath control, visualization, maintaining a radically positive mindset, right? Transferring that positivity to a feeling state. So not only was I thinking positive, but I was feeling positively. And learning how to, establish and focus on the right goals. And that was happening I found through the breath and the visualization training. Then everything started to get clearer, and, ideas and insights were coming to me. Yeah. And so I said, well, I'm going to teach all that. And I thought, well, what's the best way to teach that? And I thought, well, I need to practice it. So not only do I need to develop curriculum around teaching this stuff, or so I could teach it and so they could understand it, but I actually had to develop skills and drills and practices. And so all that I remembered with warrior yoga, I said, well, you know what, that was profoundly useful for me.
Yeah.
So I started teaching the practices through warrior yoga. And then I, developed these academies, which I referenced earlier, like 3 days, 5 days, and 3 weeks. And interestingly enough, the SEAL candidates who trained with me for 3 weeks, we have a 90% success rate getting them through SEAL training.
Yeah, that's nuts.
The last 2 classes, the last 2 honor men were SEALFIT trainees. They're doing
compare that to the average Joe who goes in for
80 to 90% washout rate.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So we've flipped it. And whatever we're doing is working. You know what I mean? I'd love to get down there and to teach, the SEAL instructors what we're doing. But that'll probably happen someday. We're not pushing it because they're busy and, they've got their way of doing things. But it's neat. It's like Back to the Future to me, because I can imagine, all great warrior traditions have had some combination of working out and working in. If you look at the samurai, they had Zen. The Apache scouts had sacred silence and their very long vision quests, and they would send the teenager out into the wilderness alone, forbid contact with other human beings for a year. And if they made it back, they were accepted into the warrior tribe. You know what I mean? All sorts of examples of this. The yogis have already discussed, and even the ancient Greek Spartans, they had practices that were inner and outer. Yeah. Yet here in the West, we've just completely ignored all that.
Yeah. It's unfortunate.
And so I'm trying to bring it back together. And I teach warrior yoga with Western cultural context. Like I take the foo out of the kung fu. There's no Sanskrit words, You don't have to wear, as a guy, you don't have to wear spandex. It's not about any of that. We don't chant, we don't say namaste and, at the end of each session. It's just a guy's yoga, and it's phenomenally effective and really cool. Everyone loves it.
Cool. That's awesome.
So I'm excited about that. Thanks for letting me ramble on about that.
Of course. Yeah. Well, we are getting close on time, but I have one more question for you that I'm personally curious about. You're obviously very learned. You have a lot of passions. Where do you get your information? Like, what books do you read? Where do you find things that you can trust and learn from?
Oh, man. All over the place. I am a sucker for ancient yoga texts. Everything I get my hand on. We think that the most interesting stuff is the most recent. It is not.
Yeah, they figured it out way long ago.
They have. We're just completely reinventing the wheel over and over and over. I love what's coming out in modern research too. I mean, some of the stuff, like I just picked up a book called Go Wild.
I read that book. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. This is like SEALFIT, in a book.
Yeah.
Like, basically eat paleo, get busy, get outside and play, meditate, hang with your family, reduce your stress. I mean, it's like, okay, check. You know what I mean? I love just meditating and allowing that knowingness to unfold. The yogis believe that if you spend enough time cultivating your consciousness, and your mind, that you would ultimately know all things.
Yeah.
Now, again, that's a fine art, right? I'm not sitting here telling you that I know all things, because I don't. The more I think I know, the less I actually know. It seems like.
Sure.
But I can honestly tell you that much of what I write about and much of what I do just came to me through meditation session or through yoga or. One of our long ass weekends, we're just spend a lot of time alone, rucking up a mountain or whatever. Right. And then also through teaching, I have great insights, watching other people experience breakthroughs. And, we've trained a few thousand people now. And, there have been some extraordinary breakthroughs and extraordinary experiences that people have had. And I really learn a lot from them. And I try to stay open, I'm really not, I really think that learning comes from being, continually opening the vessel and emptying it of concepts, and sometimes I wake up really scared, I'm not scared in the sense of being scared for my life. I'm a very confident person, but I wonder if I've taught everything that I know. Right? And then I
That's
realized
cool.
that's silly because all I got to do is empty the cup a little bit and let
Sure.
something else flow into it. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's usually a time when I have some sort of like my own little dip, and then all of a sudden I just have another breakthrough, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
and out of that comes a book or something like that.
Right. Right on. That's so cool. That reminds me, I woke up this morning. I had a dream, a nightmare, I guess, about accidentally drinking Diet Coke.
Oh my God, that'd be horrible.
Oh,
You
it's
might
funny what
survive.
comes to you sometimes, isn't it?
Hilarious,
Anyway, we're just about out of time. Thank you so much for coming on, Mark. Where can people find you?
They can find me, if you're bold enough to come out and train with me, come to Encinitas, sunny California, to SEALFIT Training Center. And you can learn about that at sealfit.com, SEALFIT, all one word, sealfit.com. We got tons of cool videos there and tons of free information, weekly blog, all sorts of cool things. My podcast is on iTunes called Unbeatable Minds, Mark Divine's Unbeatable Mind podcast on the SEALFIT channel. Also, if you're interested in the books, if you're a leader, The Way of the SEAL is awesome, and a lot of what we
Love
talked
that
about,
book.
Abel, people, would be valuable to you. The Way of the
Mm-hmm.
SEAL, and then my philosophy and all training is also depicted in the book Unbeatable Mind, which I just finished the third edition of. So that's
Nice.
available on Amazon, and both are available in audiobook. And if you're a warrior looking to step up your training, then 8 Weeks to SEALFIT is a good book to start, because it really gets the first few 6 chapters are all about mental training and breathing, and different. It's a different kind of fitness book.
Nice.
Pretty cool. And Warrior Yoga, that book won't be ready until 2016, but we do have some information on that in our Unbeatable Mind online training program.
Awesome.
So, yeah, thanks
Well,
very much.
Of course, yeah. So anyone who's listening or watching, if you're looking for a bunch of secret weapons that will turn you superhuman, check out Mark Divine's work. I've read his books. I haven't gone to Kokoro yet, although I certainly wouldn't cross it off the list of possibilities. It sounds pretty awesome in a lot of ways.
I'm going to hold you to that. In fact, we're just going to assume that you're going to go to Kokoro.
As long as you're right there with me, Mark, I'll be fine.
All right, no problem.
Awesome. Well,
right,
Mark, thank you so much for coming on. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care, buddy. Hoo-yah.
Hey, this is Abel, and I have a quick question for you. Do you want to get in the best shape of your life without giving up your favorite foods? Don't miss your opportunity to get the new Fat Burning Chef e-cookbook featuring more than 200 delicious recipes from the top paleo chefs in the world. You can get it now for a huge discount at fatburningchef.com. You can type it in from any device. Keep on listening for the details. Meet Jane. Jane knows she's supposed to eat right, but it's been one heck of a long day and she's short on time to cook a healthy, delicious dinner. Jane knows she can get lean by choking down reheated chicken breast and steamed broccoli 6 times a day for the next 3 months, but that doesn't sound like very much fun. Fortunately, Jane's in luck because her friend just sent her a collection of over 150 quick and easy recipes that just so happen to keep the pounds off. It's called the Fat Burning Chef. And through the magic of the interwebs, this handy, interactive digital cookbook beams straight to you instantly. And since it lives on your iPhone, iPad, Droid, computer, or other gizmo, you'll never be without quick and easy fat-burning meals. But it's not just about mouth-watering recipes. We want to change the world with real food. When you grab the Fat Burning Chef, you get another copy as a free gift to share with your friends and family. So if you're short on time and want to know what's for dinner tonight, head on over to fatburningchef.com and we'll fix you right up. Bon appetit, Jane. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Fat Burning Man. If you liked it, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, the podcast app, or wherever else you might be listening to or watching this show. Got a second? Please leave me a quick review on iTunes. I always love hearing from you, and if you think someone else might like and benefit from this free show, please take a second to share it with a friend or with a family member. You can get in touch with me on Twitter at FatBurnMan and Facebook by typing in Abel James or Fat Burning Man. Drop me a line anytime. Did you know that I've recorded over 150 episodes of Fat Burning Man, winning 4 awards in independent media and hitting #1 in more than 8 countries? And here's some more good news. You can download and listen to every single episode for free. All you have to do is type in fatburningman.com. I'll give you a second to type it in, fatburningman.com. And you'll get all the show notes and video and audio versions for all the past episodes of Fat Burning Man. Better yet, enter your best email at fatburningman.com, sign up for my newsletter, and I'll even send you a quick start guide to start burning fat right now and a few of our ridiculously tasty recipes as a special thanks for signing up. Once again, just go to fatburningman.com right now, enter your best email to get your free fat burning download straight to your inbox, and make sure that you never miss a show again. This is Abel James signing off. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great week. Can we do this? Because there are so many, obviously, and we've covered a lot of them in past episodes, and I know you have as well. But if someone is just listening to this for the first time, just dipping their toes into this crazy wild world that we live in, can you do, say, like the top